Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We are here with episode 7 of Jeremy Alvarez TV, and today's special guest is David Pineda. David, what's up, man?
How's it going, Jeremy? Nice to be here. Glad to be here.
All right. Quick little introduction to get to know David. David is a recent UCSB graduate. He graduated with his Bachelor's of Arts in Biological Sciences at UCSB, which is a top 5 public university in the nation. So it's not very easy to do. And for anybody that isn't familiar with UCSB, it's on the quarter system as well. So the 10-week quarter system that the classes are crammed into can be a little chaotic in and of itself. So congratulations to you, David. David is now aspiring to enter graduate school and is aspiring to be a physical therapist and is completing the prerequisites to get that done. So congratulations again, David. How you feel?
Thank you. Appreciate it. It's good. It's a good accomplishment. It doesn't feel real sometimes, because you're just grinding 4 years, just, studying hard, thinking about what you're going to take next. But now that I'm done, I'm just kind of it's just weird. It's a weird feeling. I feel like I still open my UCSB page. What do I do? I got homework, I got tests, and everything like that. Yeah, but I think the quarter system has definitely taken a toll on me. It was a good run, but I'm kind of glad I'm done with the quarter system, because it's just there's some times where you don't even have time to really grasp. You just got to keep going and get on pace and just you gotta finish. You gotta pass those classes at the end of the day.
Does it feel good to hear me say UCSB graduate, biological sciences? I did that. Yeah, I did that.
It's funny because at first I'm yeah, I did that. And later I'm done already. I don't know. It's just, I feel like I'm home, but I'm on a vacation or something. Cause I would always come home for a week and then go back. So, but it's definitely an accomplishment. It feels pretty cool to hear that name now, that title.
Man, you earned it. Congratulations. So, would you have some plans? We talked a little bit about what you wanted to talk about. You can go ahead and start with, some of the topics you wanted to address today.
Yeah, definitely. I think I was just going to start off first, a little bit of general. I'm just talking about since, like you said, I'm an aspiring PT. I was going to ask, if you had what would you consider the 3 most important things or ideas to grasp during this journey of coming into the field and learning about, anatomy, physio, in the past we've talked about movement. So what would you consider 3 most important things to be successful in this field and to grasp at this early stage?
The first thing is to not stop learning and to continue to educate yourself, right? Outside of school. Now is when the real learning starts, right? So now you have to take the things you've learned in your undergraduate degree, all the knowledge, foundational knowledge of all the terminology that I know that and understand, and utilize that to further educate yourself when you research or when you read a book or when you're having a conversation with another very intelligent professional, right? So you need to use all the skills you've learned in undergraduate school to further educate yourself and you need to continue to find ways to put an effort in, not just sit around and wait till it comes to you. No, you need to put an effort in to educating yourself more. Don't say no to opportunities. You're at a time in your life right now where you need to say F yes to everything. Okay? Get as much experience and breadth of knowledge right now as much as you can. Okay.
Yeah, I think that is a good advice because I've always been into sports and a big sports guy, but I was thinking about it lately. People who don't play sports, you can get a different experience. Injuries that maybe don't happen while you play sports, or maybe the same injuries that people get as playing sports that people who don't get playing sports, which is pretty interesting because you can just be running.
You're already doing what what I wasn't going to tell you, and I was hoping you would just experience. There's connections. It's just, what do you want to do? You tell me, actually.
So I don't know. At the beginning, I was very like, I want to do athletes like that. Sports is my main thing. But lately, I don't know. I've been kind of just open minded and just kind of seeing what I really want to do. I don't want to be too strict on myself. But like, this is the path I want to take, and I'm only going to do this. So all I know is I want to help people with injuries. I want to get them back to 100%. So like that's like the overall goal right now. So I don't know. It would be nice to work with athletes at the beginning, but it's not something that like I wouldn't be mad about if I don't. You know, I just feel like I'm more worried right now of gaining as much knowledge as I can, because I feel like if I do that now, I can go into anything. If I go into work with older people, I can go into sports. Like it doesn't matter if I have the knowledge to do both, you know? So I think that's like my most important focus right now that I'm trying to do.
Yeah. And you could always end up treating both too, you know, splitting your day in half or kind of mix matching appointments. You could always do that too. But I guarantee that my third piece of advice, because I asked you that, is your thought of where you're going to be heading will change, you know? And the reason why is because your stage in life and your priorities will change. Right now, you know, you just graduated, you know, you're like figuring things out, right? You're not, you know, in the market to buy a house, you know, you're not, I don't know, maybe in the market to get married, you know, next month or next year, right? So I hope she's not watching.
I know. Don't watch this part.
But you see what I'm saying? And so, you know, maybe your priorities change, you know, oh, I'm in a place of life where I need to learn as much as I can, or I'm in a place in life where I just need to go in an area where I can make the most money. Right. So as your priorities change, that field's going to change, and possibly your interests might change. Right. And who knows, you're a very intelligent guy. Who knows, maybe you'll make your own setting, right? Never been done before setting. Right. And so maybe you do that. Who knows? But it will change. That's my third piece of advice. So in summary of the three most important ideas to be successful in the field and to grasp early on is to, number one, further your knowledge beyond school from what you've learned so far, and have a F yes attitude, accept all opportunities that come your way, and be ready for change in a career, because it's probably not going to end up the way that you are thinking at first. But I want to transition. I want you to talk more. I want you to tell me and the audience, why did you choose physical therapy? What led you to that?
So I think what like led me into physical therapy was like, I mean, I've been the guy that you can name like 5 movies and I probably have all 4 out of 5 that you name. So like, I don't know, I've been into sports like all my life, grew up playing soccer. You know, as you know, I was a little bit like, you know, pretty heavy. So I transitioned from soccer to football. And then like while I was playing football, I played basketball. So I've just always been, you know, like playing sports, and something that, you know, motivated me a lot. And so like as I grew older, I mean, I knew like being a professional athlete was not my road, just, you know. And so, but my goal was to always be at least involved sort of in sports and like something to do with sports. So I mean, I watch a lot of professional sports, and then consistently, you know, I play fantasy football too. And it's like injuries, this, injuries, that, player goes down. And so I always just kept asking, like, why do people get injured? Like, you know, like, why is it that you train, you have all these therapists, and like people are still going down often consistently? And it's like, you know, if you're a pro athlete, you're getting the best type of, you know, insurance, whatever, or like care that you're getting, but people are still going down. So I think it led me into just asking those questions why, and kind of, you know, dive into the field and learn about the body and like how the body works with each other. Like, for example, I talked about UNA. The reason I found out ACL injuries also happen to a lot is because like we don't have that much blood circulation in our knee. So it's like, you know, so that's a lot of things that like could be a cause of injury. So just wanted to learn more about our body and why sports have a lot of injuries, and understand why injuries happen in these other sports. So I think that's kind of what like triggered me into going into the physical therapy. And just in general, I mean, like sooner or later we're gonna get old, and our bodies stop kind of working as good as they used to.
That's
And so
right.
like it's not only just sports, where this can be very useful. And so I think it's like it's gonna be a fun journey, and just learning about sports, and then later on, how our bodies change over time and as we get older.
It's not bad to
Yeah.
learn, right? Like you learn for a job,
Yeah.
sure, but it's good to also know personally how can you
Yeah,
improve yourself.
definitely.
That's great,
Yeah.
man.
My grandma's always like, I need massages. My
Help your
grandma's always trying
family and
to
friends out. Yeah, that's a good one too. Yeah,
yeah.
man. I could tell you're obviously passionate about it. I mean, anybody that, first of all, wants to come on here and talk about movement, and then you come out and ask a question, on my podcast, like, hey, how can I get better? What are three things that can, somebody should think about to become successful? Like it's obvious that you're passionate and you have a drive to want to be better. So that's very admirable of you. And I think you're going to be fine as long as you have that in your mind. So the next thing I want to
Thanks,
ask
thank
for our viewers is, what advice would you give people who are about to graduate and are interested in some healthcare profession related to athlete training or physical therapy?
One advice I think I'd give is kind of like, I would say just, for example, for me, it was like, when I came into the UCSB, I had been saying that I wanted to be in physical therapy, but my first 2 years, I kept having this idea like, oh, I got time, I got time, like it's okay, like I'm just gonna do what I need to do now, and I got time. But as time came on, I came into the ATR as a junior, and that's when I started realizing like, these last 2 years that I was doing nothing at all, and I said I had time, I could have been learning like a lot more, and like, and it was definitely possible those 2 years, but I just kept telling myself like, like I have time, like it's okay. So I feel like it's good to like kind of go out there and like, not be afraid to like join stuff, um, get into like, programs, internship or anything like that. Because I mean, yes, you do have time, but also you don't have time, and for me, unfortunately, like I thought I had time. My first 2 years at UCSB were good. And then when I started realizing that I needed to apply, COVID hit. So now it's like I was in the program, but I was online. So it's kind of like, it helped me a lot, but I also didn't really get that full experience. And so if I would have done that before COVID, I probably would have had some like, better experience and more time. And it even comes down to like time management and other things. Like, as you know, I did ballet for a little bit while I was in school. And like before, I should just, sit on my phone all day and stuff like that. But then I was like, you know what? Like I could be reading about something right now. Like I can be like learning while I'm at work, like
Mm-hmm.
just some time. And so I feel like the way I'm seeing it lately, it's just like when I go to physical therapy school, each and one of us is going to be learning the same thing from the same textbook. So it's really kind of like up to you to go out and get that other knowledge from somewhere else to be, the best you can be, and to learn from other people. At the beginning, you're not going to know much. Even up to this day, I don't know as much, but you can only get more knowledge from there. You can't go more, you can't know less.
Oh, I was telling somebody else that the experience you have is a lot. Like you, sure, maybe don't know the exact terminology of the names, but coming in, there's a lot of things that you already knew as a former athlete, and things you've already seen and experienced. So it's not that you don't know anything; it's that you're right. Like you're learning everything along the way. And honestly, there's stuff I learn from you guys all the time too. Different perspectives that you guys share and the questions you guys ask are incredible. So thank you guys for all that too.
All right, so just transitioning a little bit. So one injury that really kind of gets to me and like amazes me is ACL injuries, and it's just because like I watch a lot of sports. I watch soccer, baseball, football, and then every single sport I watch, there's always an ACL injuries every single year, over and over. And so I was just gonna ask if you can kind of explain like why is that? Like why is it that ACLs are so weak compared to other bodies? I mean, we use our legs every day, our toes, everything, but like ACLs is like a very big target that always could tear kind of easily.
I think the first problem is that we know that ACL injuries are preventable. It's a very preventable condition, right? Now, the problem is that we can't agree on a specific program or standardize a technique or a thing for every school, for every organization, for every group that meets, right? Doesn't matter the gender or population. We can't agree. Somebody has their golden thing that they do. Somebody else has their golden thing that they do, right? We can't agree on something. We can't standardize on something that we can just do across the board to prevent ACLs, which makes it very complex and complicated that officials that make decisions, in charge of the budgets and stuff, for example, that are going to pay for these programs, like for the school, they're not convinced, right? And I can't blame them. Why am I going to put money in this person who's saying they have the ultimate prevention program when somebody else just told me the same thing last year, right? Everybody thinks that they have the best program, best theory, best idea, right? But we need evidence. We need facts, like I was talking to you about here in a second, how I wanted to order it, because that helps gives credibility to a program. Now you can say, hey, look, this isn't just my doing. This is what science is telling us, right? And then we can move forward from there. But I feel like we're just shooting at the hip. Everybody has this idea or this thought because they read one article about, this specific thing preventing ACLs, and they put it in their program and then they want it there. But it's not like that. The other thing that I think is difficult is that the research, the facts that we do have are not, it's not translational research. It doesn't apply in the clinic. So the researchers are in a controlled setting. They're in a lab. Okay. There's no wind. There's no noise from a crowd. There's no curbs on the side of the street. There's no rocks, bumpy roads. None of that. It's a controlled setting, usually in a flat surface, very safe, flat treadmill, right? Very controlled setting, clear instructions, not a lot of noise, right? And it's difficult to apply the somatosensory system, which is what I just explained, which makes it more functionally, more translational. Okay. And my friend was studying, we all know in research that the quads are big. They play a huge role in the deceleration and landing mechanics of ACL injuries. So it makes complete sense to measure the strength of a quadriceps muscle. Okay. Well, normally in the clinic, you and I, we're muscle manual testing a quadricep muscle. We're having them sitting down or laying down. But we know, and as you're going to know, as you take my advice and learn more after school, that the body is one unit, right? We don't have these beautiful red belly muscles separated, one muscle per page of the book, right? That looks so beautiful and singled out. That's not how it is inside the body. That's not how it is, when we're running and decelerating. How it is these muscles are almost, I want to say, like Velcroed together, right? If one moves, the other one moves, right? It's like you're wearing a necklace, like literally a chain, like a kinetic chain, right? You move one, link, and all the rest kind of like domino topple over, right? Towards that force that you pulled it. It's all one tissue. So when we have someone sitting down or lying down and we're testing the strength of a specific muscle of what we're saying, we're really not testing the real strength of that muscle during the action that we're trying to study. So it's mind blowing to me. And even though a study might say, oh, well, we found this out and we found out that, more strength here equals, decreased injuries there, maybe so, but could it have also been that, you having them contract or you having them test their strength or maybe having them be more aware of that area is what did it? Who knows? And that's the beauty of research and science, is that we always have more questions. I think the best thing we can do is create a better relationship from the clinician to the researcher, right? The clinicians are saying, hey, these are the problems I'm seeing, kind of like what I just talked about now. This isn't very applicable. Thank you for the research, but I can't use it, you know? And the researcher can say, well, I got my award, so it's all good.
They got paid.
Yeah, I got paid. My wife and kids are happy. I'm paying the bills. I got a job. So, okay. But, they can build a better relationship and speak the same language, if you would. And the clinicians can say, hey, I'm having this type of problem. Maybe for your next project, you can ask this question instead of asking that question. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if we think we build a better relationship there, we can start make momentum towards something that we can make more credible. Right? So that's what I would say.
Yeah. I think, I can kind of go back to like learning more on your own, because I feel like as a clinician, if you already graduated PT school, it's like you're kind of done, learning, you're done with your field. But if, clinicians can learn more and read more about research and put those together and ask more questions, maybe that would help researchers, like study more good questions or get more precise questions. Because like you said, researchers are in a lab, it's in a controlled setting. So like they don't really see as much as clinicians do, so maybe that's a good thing to take with me to like, if I'm going to be a clinician to, read these papers and like maybe understand where they're coming from as a researcher, but maybe apply them with a different question or a more in-depth question that can maybe help both of us at the same time. But I feel like that's one thing I was thinking about while you were talking. All right. So going back to the ACL, so I know we talked about clinician and research, but I wanted to ask a little bit like, do you think like a lot of these injuries become like as a child, like as you're growing up, do you think that like, the way we train, the way they have PE in school, or like the lack of knowledge that we have when I was kids, or even like I was thinking about the other day, like, how in middle school at a very early age, they test for like scoliosis and check that your back is fine. But I always wonder, like, as a kid, can you tell if somebody has flat feet? Because that's like our base, And so if we're having flat feet as a kid and we're running and we're jumping and, our body is getting used to that as we grow up. And so now as we're growing up, we're running on these flat feet. And I'm thinking like, wouldn't that make us more prone to an injury at that point? Or like, do you not develop flat feet until like you're older? Or I don't know. How does that work?
Yeah. So I'm going to do my best to run through this really quickly for you and summarize it all. But because this can be a long conversation, man, because there's a lot of components to it. So I'm preparing the audience that, don't kill me if I forget to say something or, but anyway, so here we go. Yes. Like, remember we talked about in the beginning, you want to work with different populations. You want to work with kids. You want to work with older adults. And the reason why is because you're seeing the development happen before your eyes. You're seeing the uncontrolled setting that we talked about that the researchers aren't seeing. So our first year of life, we have synapses. And I've talked about this in other episodes before too, but I'll run through it. We have synapses, they're pruned, and there's a lot of them, right? And then after that, there's more in our later on in life in our adolescent years. And so you're talking about flat feet. Flat feet is something that is, yeah, sure, a muscle holds up the arch and everything. But beyond that is the neurology system, right? And we have reflexes, right? And the most common reflexes that athletic trainers, if you're listening, are familiar with is like Babinski's reflex. But we also have other reflexes like Morrow's reflex and things like that. And those things can actually be tested. And so you're right. Pediatricians, nurses, they're all looking for that stuff in the hospital, right? But after, a child leaves the hospital, you're correct. In schools, we're just doing screening, like testing for scoliosis and things like that. But we kind of stopped testing everything else. And, rightly so, do we have the staff for it? Do we have the credibility of the research that we were talking about? Do we have the evidence for it? Is it wise if you were in the shoes of somebody that's in control of the budget to start doing that? You and I know it's important. You and I know it's probably going to be a good thing to catch that stuff early on because we know that pruning happens in the brain and we want to make sure that everybody's moving with the best reflexes. But can we prove that to create policy? Can we prove that to somebody who's in charge of a lot of money, right? And taxpayers want to know, where's my money going, right? So do you see what I'm saying? Like our conversation earlier is actually tying in with this. We could talk about the science, like I mentioned a little bit a second ago, but I think now the conversation needs to move more towards how do we create policy? How do we create a better connection between clinicians and researchers so that we can just get the ball rolling, right? Like we're at a stopping point where it's like, okay, we know a lot of information. Okay, what are we going to do about it? And that's kind of where we're at right now. So as far as like the flat feet, like you're talking about, yeah, you can see it early on, sure, but it's not necessarily like I told you the actual muscles. It's more about what is the student's environment that they're in. You mentioned earlier, PE when you were talking about it, and it's like if the student is just told to walk around the track for PE and not really care, and they're shuffling their feet, or their parents, bought them a size too big on their shoe or it's a size too small. All these little things matter. And that's why I first started off with saying there's a lot of neural pruning going on, because even if it's one school year of you doing this, that's life-changing, right? It's going to solidify in you. And so you could have, this problem, like you're talking about flat feet, into your college years. And then your athletic trainer in college is going to look at your feet and be like, oh, you got flat feet, man. Let's do some towel crunches or whatever. Right. And it's hilarious because, the environment that the person was in created the flat feet. Right. And you can do as many, towel crunches and, Jean does short foot, which I love, to create an arch as much as you want. Right. And they are good exercises and a very good starting point. But you also have to make sure that the person's habits of how they load that foot, how they load that reflex in the bottom of the foot, and they light up the Merkel cells and the other proprioceptors that are running laterally on the bottom of the foot to engage the musculature to create that arch. Right. That's more important to me. Right. It's just like the quadricep stuff that we talked about when you're sitting down or laying down versus testing the quadricep stuff when they're standing, running, or decelerating. Right. The bottom of the foot, I can have them sitting in a chair, crunching a towel and doing this stuff, but it doesn't mean anything if I'm not loading weight and force on the bottom of that foot so that it feels the pressure and it acts when it needs to act. Right. And the most simple example for you in our audience is that when a doctor is checking your patellar tendon reflex and they hit it, right, normally your foot and knee, extend out automatically. And we all laugh because it's like, it's funny, right? Like I can't control my own leg. It's just moving. And so the same thing happens on the bottom of the foot. When you land and you have weight pushed on the bottom of your foot, this reflex also happens and just boop, boop, snaps up the arch and puts us onto our front of our foot, onto our big toes and drives us forward, right? Onto the ball of our feet. And off we're sprinting, right? Off we're landing, off we're onto our next position where we need to get to. But that's the main problem right there is the environment. So yeah, maybe it's PE. Yeah, maybe it's what they're doing outside of PE. But yes, what happens in our youth years very much affects what happens to our adult years. And I will keep it at that because we can go on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And we have a similar problem with the research with the ACL tears. We have a lot of evidence and research, but it's on one specific group, right? Has anybody ever done a longitudinal study from birth to, through college years? No, not really, right? And so it's hard. Yeah, so it's always going to be hard until something like that is done. And even when something's like that's done, it's like, 10 people dropped out, right? We don't know what happened to them. They just quit replying, right? After there is a 30-year research. So it's hard to put it in research, but also have the credibility to put it in our schools. So that's our struggle, David. Go solve the problem, man.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually a good perspective that I didn't think about, thinking about the budget and where the money's going to be going. And is there more important things than others? I think I want to put more money into education rather than looking at somebody's art in their foot. So, I mean, and a lot of, especially in today's world, money's a big thing, And like you said, people want to go where they know where their tax money, which is fair. You know, you get taxed like crazy on your on your
Yes.
paychecks. It's like, you know, you're like, where's that going? Where's that going? So
Yeah, there's gonna
I
be
mean,
an
I feel like
uproar. There's gonna be an uproar. We're just gambling where you're putting the money, right? So
yeah, no, definitely. So I think that's a great point that you brought up, and we'll definitely take that with me too. Kind of
cool.
thinking about how it is. Yep.
So, what's your favorite part of the practice or the discipline of kinesiology? What's your love about it?
I think what I love so much is just it's super interesting to know how the body works. Like if you just look at us from the outside, I mean, we're just like you look like we're a couple bones. You know, we move, we have arms, shoulders, but like the inside of our body is like crazy. Like I mean, you talked about like our anterior chain, posterior chain, and like you know our bones are connected to this, and like okay, like why do we need toes, or why do some parts rotate and others don't rotate? So it's just crazy how there's so many aspects to our body that you don't see and you wouldn't like know if you don't really go in depth with our body, you know. And it even comes down to like molecular level, you know, like you were talking about our synapses that you can't see at all, and like how as a kid, you know, we're learning stuff and that converts to like the like later in life, like learning how to walk and all that stuff. So I just think it's really cool to learn how much our body, like, you know, is capable of doing and what it does. And like I know a lot of times we're so interested in like other stuff like outside of our body, but without even really knowing like what we are and how we work individually, you know. And so I think it's very cool just to learn about our own selves and be able to work with other people and learn and help them learn about their own body and how they work, because like you know everybody has their own profession. So I just think the body is a crazy thing, and every day I wake up and do something, I'm just like, man, like this, just moving my hands. I don't even got to think about it, you know, it just happens. Like, and so I think, and the fact that when people stop being able to do that is when it becomes a problem. But like when it's everything's working well, you know, like you don't think about these little stuff. But like once it stops, it's kind of like, oh man, like why can't I move my finger? Why can't I move my hands or anything like that anymore? So I think that's a cool aspect of kinesiology and something that I really want to deep dive into and see what I can learn more about.
Man, you know what? Forget my 3 ideas of advice I gave you to be successful. You already got them, man. You already got them. You have a love, you have a passion, you want to learn more. Like, I mean, you already got them all covered. You know, you're already, you know, like you said earlier, you mentioned earlier that you have an open mind and you're open to work. You want to work with athletes, but you're okay with working in another population. You know, it's like, man, you got it. You got it. You're gonna be great. You know, my favorite question is why do we have toes? Like that's awesome, man. Really though, that's like you know, those types of questions are awesome, and your curiosity for it and your passion, you can hear it in your voice, is awesome, and that's gonna take you a long way, man. So
appreciate it. I think you taught me a lot of this confidence in the training room. I remember coming into the training room like scared because like again, like I don't know as much, and then like after combo with you, I'd be like, hey, like, you know, I could actually like hold up a little combo, you know, and like learn a little bit here and there. And like,
yes, you can.
it was less here. I feel like that's also good. Just like talking to people, I feel like it's just more easier and you just learn a lot from people. Like everyone in the training room, even people who are my grade, lower than me. Like it's crazy. You never know how much people know.
Man, it's like the food chain, right? It's like the little ecosystem that you learn about in science. Yeah. And you know, I didn't just magically was born with this. I was like you know, I had to learn from people too and listen to podcasts and watch videos and read books. So, you know, I'm definitely not like the end all be all, but I'm happy that I'm able to at least connect you to where you need to get to learn more.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's the goal of this whole podcast too, is I love this podcast because I was dying to just speak and I just need to talk. I have a lot of things to say, but it's also, a way to, you know, connect you, right? And connect you to other people that are watching, other people interested in this field, connect coaches, connect healthcare professionals, and just give everybody a platform to speak their mind, right? And share their love and passion for movement. Yeah.
Yep. I definitely think you do a good job of that. Appreciate it a lot.
Yeah. So thank you for coming on. And, you're going to be fine. And, hopefully in the future, when we do this again, you're just continuing to grow and you have more stories for us.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be back with a couple more. Let's do it. We'll work some out.
All right, great. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Perfect.